Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the Nova again, starting to put the rear suspension back together. I'm replacing the leaf springs with a 3-bar system. It's kind of like a 4-link but without a panhard rod. Follow along, check it out. Alright, as you can see here, I've moved the axle away from the car back over by my little shed. I've already started taking the nuts off the plates on the bottom that mount the shocks and hold the leaf springs in place. So we're just gonna, hopefully this will pop loose pretty easy, other than getting those loose. There we go. Those are out of the way. Those spring pads. And there it, oops, I dumped those out. And there's the spring loose. I'm just going to repeat that on the other side. Alright, the first part of my new system, or my new rear suspension, is these lower control arms. Basically what I've done is I got an 1.5 by 2-inch tube here, rectangular tubing, and I cut the front and the rear eyelets off the existing leaf springs. That way I can use existing bushings. It'll be easy to get them this up for any day. So this is the front, it's a little bit bigger, and this will hang underneath the car, and then this end will sit underneath the axle, and it'll just move up and down. So I've got Prothane, polyurethane bushings for both ends. So that's the next thing we're going to do, is we're going to put these in. Alright, as I said before, this is the box that the bushings come in from Prothane. Look like they're pretty good quality. These are the fronts. Of course, they're, like I said, they're polyurethane. These are the backs. They're a little smaller. And then we have a sleeve for the front, and we have a sleeve for the back. Now, right now, I've only welded up this back eyelet solid. The front, I've just got it tacked. So the front bushings, I gotta push them in, and I'll have to take them back out to finish welding this. I'm pretty sure this is really close to the right length, but I'm not absolutely positive that this is the right length that I want. But I know it's really close. So first thing we do is we grease these up. Now I've cleaned out the insides of the old eyelets, but we just spread some grease on these. Alright. There we have the one assembled. Alright guys, I want to show you something. I started cleaning this rear end off. And I got basically a bunch of the grease and oil and dirt and mud and stuff off the outside of it. Started getting some of the rust off as well. In order to take the axles out and then get the brake backing plates off and that kind of stuff. Excuse me. So when I popped the cover off, here's the inside of the cover. You see right down here is rust. And all inside here on the gears. And oh, I got it set where it can't turn. Give me a second here. But if you look here, there's rust on the carrier. There's rust on the gears. And there's rust in the bottom of the case. Now, my plan was originally to use this rear end for a while. It's only an 8.2 inch, so I know it wasn't really strong enough to handle give or take 400 horsepower or whatever we were trying to get to. But at this point, it cost me as much to redo this rear end, or close to it, as it would be for me to go ahead and just fork out the money for a 9-inch. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And I don't really have the money for a Ford 9-inch, and I don't have the money to rebuild this one. So for now, we're just going to use this rear end to kind of mock up in the car, get some brackets built, and that way when I finally can afford the Ford 9-inch, I'll have pretty much everything ready for it to go up and bolt in. Alright, now I've mocked up the rear axle underneath the car. It's not quite perfect, but it's pretty close. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but the my arms are a little bit too long. They come out behind the axle. I just got them hanging down and they're hitting the leaf spring bracket on the front side, which I'll take care of that later. I cut that out some, make some room. But the tail end picture is that one over there. You can see how it sticks out behind the axle, and it's supposed to be lined up fairly close to the middle of the axle. Now my ride height is pretty close, but it's not exact either, but it's close. So looks like I've got to take these back down and cut the fronts, or cut the main tubes a little bit shorter, and then try again. And here's a look at it from the side. That's about where I want the ride height to be, maybe a little bit shorter, but I'm going to have adjustable coilovers, so that way I can adjust the height, and my my arm on the top will also be adjustable. I have rod ends that I'm going to use to put that together, so I just figured I'd show you that too. Alright, as I showed earlier, the arms were a little bit too long, so I cut them off, rechecked them. I ended up cutting almost 2.5 inches off of them. Since then I have final welded the big end, which would be the fronts. Of course, this is the back end with the bushings already installed. Now that I've got that done, the next thing I'm going to do is, let me walk out here. This is our bottom plate. for the that would normally sandwich your leaf spring in. And I'm going to cut a notch out and up to this little point here. And what that'll do is allow my arm to come up in between these two spots here on the mount. And that'll give me a little bit of extra room for my arm to move as the suspension goes down. I don't need it as it goes up, just as it goes down. And that'll also allow me to mount the arm a little bit closer to the rear axle, where if I didn't do this, I'd have to drop it down, I don't know, maybe 3 inches or something. And this way I can bring that up a little bit closer, and my bracket won't be as big or hang down as far, and will be just a little bit stronger. So we'll come back in a minute after I've cut this out, and I'll show you what I was talking about. Okay, here's the plates that originally held the leaf springs in place. You see, I've modified them a little bit, made this cutout. I have kind of welded in the corners here to kind of stiffen it up a little bit. And that is the control arm. I got them painted. This is for the driver's side. And this is my back bracket. Now I started out going from the center line down 3 inches. And the reason I did that was because when I first mocked the arm up against the rear end, as you can probably see, I needed a little bit of room to get the clearance for this. And that's also one of the reasons why I cut this out, is I thought I was going to have a clearance issue. But in my kind of weird way, I guess, I messed up, and I had the pinion angle and the rear end rotated down, and I was about 7 or 8 degrees down, and I rotated it up those 7 or 8 degrees and got it to 3 degrees up, and all of a sudden I don't need this much space. I only needed this much space, and really even this is kind of high, but I want it up, because when this sits, this will be like this, and then this will be up, so this will work just fine there, like that. So now what I have to do is, because these kind of land, these here, sorry, they kind of land, get this in about the right spot, they kind of land in the same place as our nuts come through. And so these are the nuts, sorry about that. So I got to make enough room for those nuts and the heads of the bolts to fit underneath this. So I'm going to make some little notches out here and here, and then I'm going to make a plate that goes across the back here, and I'm going to notch it out as well, so I can slide these in and then tighten it up without being in the way here. So, and then as you can see here, there are these spots here where they crimp the metal to make it stronger. I'm going to have to cut out around those a little bit. Once I get that done, I'm going to cut this side off. This side's actually going to be down here. So I'm going to cut this side down so it's kind of even with the top, and I'll probably round it off a little bit so it's not sharp and catching on everything. It's already going to hang down quite a bit, so I just kind of want to do whatever I can to excuse me, to keep it from catching on stuff. So we'll come back here shortly and I'll show you what I've done. Alright, now I got this welded up good all the way around. Inside as well. And it's cooled off. Now what I'm going to do is do some trimming, smooth it out a little bit better. These front reliefs, instead of just leaving this out here this long, I'm going to cut it straight up from there, and then I'm going to round the top off, so it'll kind of come back and match with this top of this. And the one thing I made a mistake on was I wasn't thinking about this, but I needed to have this deep enough that it come in contact down here. So what I'm going to do is I've got another plate I'm going to stick down in the middle of this. I'm going to weld these two plates together, this one and the other one, and then I'm going to weld the other one down here to the bottom. That'll stiffen this up, that'll tie this and this together, and that'll keep this from being able to wobble back and forth and twist and stuff. So I think that's pretty much all I'm going to do to it, and I'll come back when I've got it pretty well finished up. Okay, now I apologize for the wind because it's been blowing real bad here all day today. But here are the finished mounts for my lower control arms, where they mount up to the back, underneath the axle. So, like I said earlier, I rounded the tops, cut them down a bit, reinforced them some. Put this deal in the middle here. And if you look at those very closely, you can see my welds look like crap on this. And that's because I'm trying to weld outside with the wind blowing, which is never good. So I did get it done. They are about as good as I can expect. Not great, but not bad. So I'll move on to the next step. Alright, I've got the lower control arm mounted to the driver's side now. Driver's side of the car. I don't have that back bracket painted, but I've got it hanging down in place. You get to see, you can kind of see there what it's supposed to be like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the other side and basically show you just how I've been putting it together, or how to put it together. And there it is. So I got both the lower control arms in place now. I'll come back once I start mocking up the upper arm, which I don't know if I've said it before, but it's actually going to be a triangular shape versus like another straight arm. So we'll come back when I get to that point. Alright guys, I got started trying to do the upper arm for the rear suspension, and this was going to be my center link. This was actually going to set up on the top of the pumpkin, and then I was going to have pieces coming off here going up at angles on both sides to the frame. Only once I got this in there and tried to mock it up on top of the pumpkin, I realized that it didn't have enough height. And as you see here, I have another deal here, just similar, except it's a lot longer. This one here right now I think is about 8 inches, give or take. I even welded the tube end already in it, the insert. Had it ready, which was kind of silly on my part, because I didn't check the clearances beforehand. What I'm going to end up having to do, instead of doing the one triangle, is try to do a triangulated 4-link. And I know ever since I started this build, I've been talking about it was going to be just a single link, triangle shape and everything. But sorry, excuse me. We have really bad gnats here, and they're like they're called buffalo gnats, and they bite the crap out of you. So they're trying to swarm me. So what I'm going to do is, one end I'm going to come off the side of the pumpkin, probably on the axle tube itself, and then the other side will be mounted just inside the frame rail. It's kind of similar to what the old Chevelles and Cutlass and Malibus and everything had. If you've ever seen the newer style, the G-body cars, the newer Cutlass and Regals and such, they tend to have the rear end wag a little bit. I'm hoping that I can get these put in at a sharp enough angle not to have that. So I'm going to take this out to the car and try to show you what my new plan is going to be. Okay, I'm not sure how well I'm going to be able to show you this, but I'm going to try to get this up over there, somewhere in that neighborhood, at this kind of angle, over here to the frame. Sorry, I'm really close and it's kind of hard to hold that and keep the camera still and everything. But it's going to be something like this. It's not going to be quite the sharp angle that I wanted, and with the when we finally get a 9-inch rear end in here, I ain't gonna be able to mount it to the center section anyway, so I'm gonna have to mount it out here over there on the side, out on the tube. So that's kind of where I'm headed, you know, what direction I'm headed with this. So unfortunately it didn't work out. As you can see here, I got this big hump in the floor, sorry again, so I can't get up here to this point like that. And like I said, on the forward rear end, this is all separate, so I ain't gonna be able to weld to that carrier and start putting brackets on it, because every time I would break a front end, or break that carrier or something, it would be a pain in the ass to fix. So I'm going to try to go over here, of course, like I've showed already, and do that, and hope that I don't have that G-body wiggle or whatever they call it. Alright, as you've seen, I made a mistake by not checking the clearances before I tried to do that top arm, triangulated arm deal, and now I've also used a tube insert, and I'm short a tube insert now because I only bought 3, and I bought 3 heim joints. So now I've got to order 2 new tube inserts and an extra heim joint to do this 4-arm deal versus the 3 arms, because before I was only going to have the 1 point at the axle housing and the 2 points out on the frame, and now I'm going to have 2 axle mounts, or 2 housing mounts, and 2 frame mounts. So I've got to order that. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I think it's probably already pretty damn long as it is. So again, I want to say thank you to all my subscribers and anybody who's watched my videos. I do appreciate it. This ain't the end of this deal. There'll be a part 2. Sorry. There'll be a part 2 of this with me getting these upper arms set up and put in place, get everything welded up. But for now, I think this is it. Hopefully I don't take as long getting the next video out. I know it's been almost 3 months or something like that since I've had a video out on the car. I have another video I'm going to have coming out shortly, working on something else, so stay tuned for that as well. And if you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.